So, the big question is this: how are ambitious people like us, who don't have a lot of resources, did not go to Ivy League colleges, were not born into wealth, how do we become resourceful enough? Use our creativity, our dedication, and a little bit of crazy to bootstrap our way to realizing our dreams. Whether it is launching a new company, launching a new app, or making it to the top of the corporate ladder. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. If you like this video, do not forget to hit that like button now. Or if you want us to improve our content, go ahead and hit the thumbs down button and give us your feedback in the comment section below. Here at Tetranoodle, we are passionate about entrepreneurship, technology, and innovation. Every week, we bring you insightful and engaging interviews, tips, tricks, and strategies to help you grow your business or rise in your corporate profession. So, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. And do not forget to hit that bell icon so that you are notified when we publish new content. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. I'm your host, Manuj Aggarwal, and today we will be talking with Veronica Hislop. And Veronica is a trained and certified therapist and counselor with broad knowledge of mental health, especially for entrepreneurs. And she has agreed to share with us all the cool tips, tricks, and secrets that hardly any entrepreneur or professional knows about how it can really accelerate your results by understanding and overcoming the biggest challenge of entrepreneurship, which is mental health. So thank you, Veronica, for joining us. We're excited to have you here.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, great. So just so that our audience can get to know you better, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your experience?
Yeah, I started out, many years ago. If I tell you how many years, I'm going to be dating myself. But I started out as a trained social worker, and then from there I got some training as a child and family therapist. And then from there I went into trauma counseling. And from there, I've moved on into life relationship coaching. Mm-hmm. So I bring all of that to the work that I do with clients. I mean, my niche clients today are primarily working with female entrepreneurs, but having said that, 30% of the clients that come to me are men. And my background is I've worked with police officers, I've worked with emergency responders, politicians, women in coming out of abusive situations, all kinds of trauma. So I've kind of moved away from doing that kind of work. Yeah. I still have my foot in the water. I do a little bit of victim quick response services in Brampton, where I live, and I also do some SOS services for the federal government, but not to the same extent that I was doing before.
Awesome. That's great. And so have you noticed any trends in terms of, this epidemic of mental stress and health affecting population in general and entrepreneurs in particular?
Well, based on the research, there was a project done, it was called the Mindset, the intersection of entrepreneurship and mental health. Mm-hmm. And it was a Canadian project, and they did a lot of research in terms of entrepreneurs and mental health. Mm-hmm. And what they were seeing significantly was that entrepreneurs had higher rates of mental health than the regular population. Mental health in terms of depression, in terms of anxiety. So they were seeing that in Canada. And when you look at the research that's done throughout the world, significantly the US and England, or the English-speaking world, it's the same trend is showing up there, that entrepreneurs are not necessarily that healthy, and they're certainly less healthy in terms of mental health than the regular population.
Okay, that's quite alarming, given that we have a lot of entrepreneurs in our audience. So, what do you attribute this trend to? Like, do you think there is anything inherently wrong with entrepreneurship?
There's nothing wrong with entrepreneurship at all. But I think, it's I think the stress from being an entrepreneur, the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur, maybe not having a regular income, the stress of starting up a business, the stress of maybe your family don't understand what it is that you're doing. Why don't you get a real job kind of thing. All of those kinds of stresses, I think, can feed into your mental health, how you see yourself and how you function. And also, we want to be successful at this. And so we can drive ourselves to a point where it's easy for the body and the mind to break down.
So definitely entrepreneurship is a huge challenge, and I can personally attest to that. Now, what are some of the strategies that you recommend to your clients to get into a healthier mental state? Because as we all know, and you also pointed out, mindset and positive thinking are some of the key things, key ingredients to success. So if we are already stressed out, like how do we train our minds to think more healthy thoughts and positive thoughts?
Well, I think just understanding that as an entrepreneur, what you're doing is going to be stressful, and understanding that stress is playing a more significant part in your life, so that you do have to factor in your own self-care plan and self-care strategies. And you do have to make that paramount, and you do have to, you can't play with that. You just have to recognize that, especially if you're a solopreneur, that you are the business. So if you're not there to run the business or to give direction, then you don't have a business. So taking care of yourself and understanding that it's stressful, what you're doing is stressful, and knowing that you need to have stress management techniques and implement them in your life. That's one of the things that it needs to be paramount in your thinking, and mindful of that.
So in terms of using these strategies, like do you have any examples of any particular tools, or
I'll give you a little story.
Sure.
One of the things that I came up with is developing systems of support. It's not support systems, but systems of support. And I'll explain what that is in a moment. But how it came about, it's this funny little story. I have a cat and a dog, I used to have a cat and a dog, and they would come upstairs in the morning and wake me up in the morning at 5:30 in the morning. And I would jump out of bed and open the door and scream at them, "What are you doing up here? Leave me alone, go away," etc. Well, I would just banish them. And one morning the sun was really shining and they were knocking at my door, and I thought, well, I can't go back to sleep. So let me just play with them. And so I started to sit on the stairs and I started just interacting with them, and they were interacting with each other. And it was only for about 5 minutes. But it was a really delightful, delicious, fun experience. And I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to start my day just doing that. Interacting with the cat and the dog. And it really set my day up in a very good way. And then from there, I thought, well, what if I was to find these delicious, delightful, delectable little moments that don't cost anything and sprinkle them throughout my day? And so I made it a mission to do just that. And so I do what is known as a polydormo technique. I think that's what I call it. But I work in 1.5 hour increments. And after an hour and a half, I get up and I do something. I find one of my systems of support. It could be just playing the piano for 10 minutes. It could be listening to a comedy routine for 10 minutes. It could be going out and skipping for 10 minutes, sitting down and having a nice cup of tea in a nice china cup. But you sprinkle those systems of support throughout your day so that you replenish. So that's kind of one of my strategies that I implement for myself, and it works well. I mean, for some people, they can't work an hour and a half. They have to stop working after 40 minutes, 45 minutes. Well, depends on you. You don't have to work an hour and a half like I do. But, every hour or so, get up from your desk, move, skip, do some jumping jacks. And these things don't cost money.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying go out and spend a whole lot of money. I'm saying find little simple systems that you can put in place that replenish and rejuvenate you.
That's an awesome advice. I've tried some of these tricks as well. They're implemented a little bit differently, but I do realize the importance of rejuvenating your mental state of mind by adopting these small tricks. So that's awesome. Now, do you find any specific patterns or specific things that are common between entrepreneurs which causes these symptoms of mental health?
Well, I don't know. I'm speculating here, so this is just my take on things. I think probably more entrepreneurs. I think the entrepreneurship attracts people who have more ADHD. I think it attracts people who probably have more anxiety. And then being an entrepreneur creates anxiety on top of that. So I think, it may be that and I think it may be because those kinds of people may find it difficult working in a regular 9-to-5 job or in a corporate environment. And also entrepreneurship attracts a lot of people with creativity.
Yeah. Sure. All right. So now, have you noticed any positive correlation? Because as we know, stress can be good as well, because it helps us deal with other harmful situations. So have you seen any patterns where mild amount of stress can also be helpful for entrepreneurs?
Well, I think it challenges you. To really look at your life and look at how you're living your life and how you manage your life and how you manage your work and how you manage your relationships. And rather than looking at it as something that's a problem, I think we need to look at it more as a challenge, that we're challenged to manage all of these components of our life and find different ways to make it work. And I'm just amazed actually at some women that I see that are they have kids and they have a husband and they have a business, and somehow they make it work.
Yeah.
And it really is challenging us to juggle all of these balls and to take care of ourselves, take care of our families, take care of and have a business, be healthy. It challenges us in many ways.
Sure. Now, have you come across any extreme cases where somebody's so stressed out that you've had to recommend, or maybe you didn't recommend it directly, but you think that entrepreneurship is not for that person? Have you run into these type of cases?
Probably there are many, but I would never say that that's not the right thing for you to do.
Sure.
But going back to some of the research, there were a number of entrepreneurs that had actually committed suicide. I don't have their names in front of me, but a few of them, Kate, what was her name? But a lot of the research that was done in Silicon Valley also was showing that a lot of entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, because that's where all of the creativity is coming from in terms of internet on webs and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people in that area were struggling with mental health issues.
Okay. And once again, looking for some patterns so that we can sort of understand the reasoning behind it. Do you see that stress becomes higher as entrepreneurs become more successful, or is it more more a high level of stress when they're just sort of starting off and things are not working out and they're running into challenges?
I think it depends on your personality. I think if you're more successful, then you have more things at your fingertips that you can tap into to help you manage your stress. You can get into coaching. You can hire more people to do some of the things that you don't want to do. So I think the more successful you are, there's more flexibility for you in terms of managing your stress. So I wouldn't say, I would think that would be more of the issue. I think certainly starting up a business or starting up an entrepreneurship is extremely successful, is extremely stressful.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So, you shared with us a cool technique to sort of deal with the day-to-day operations and sort of keep your mental health in check. But what are some of the other tips that you wish that entrepreneurs knew in terms of maintaining a good mental health? Anything that you can share?
Well, I think one of the things that entrepreneurship pushes us to do, and if we take up the challenge, some of us don't take up the challenge. But I think when you're I have never done so much more self-reflection doing entrepreneurship now as opposed to working in a regular job. Yeah. Entrepreneurship causes you to reflect on who you are, reflect on your values and your beliefs. Yeah. And the reason why I say that is because you have to all of those things are components in your branding. They're components in your policies. They're components in your procedures, and they are components in your customer service. Yeah. So you always have to be reflective on who you are and what are your values that you're bringing to the table in your business. Yeah. And if you think of regular companies, they go through a strategic planning every 7-8 years, whatever. They go through that strategic planning process where they look at their mission statement, they look at their vision statement, they look at their values. And entrepreneurs have to be doing that themselves as well. And what it means is really taking a look at your values and beliefs that you have, and whether they fit for you now. So let me give you an example in terms of myself. Mm-hmm. One of the values that I grew up with was hard work. If you're going to accomplish anything in life, you've got to work hard, and you got to work, and maybe you might get it, but you still got to work. Mm-hmm. And I think as a value, that worked for me when I was a teenager. When I was going to university, when I was going to college, that worked for me in the sense that it kept me focused on work and not getting sidetracked with other things. Yeah. But as I've gotten older, that is no longer a good value for me. Mm-hmm. I have to, reflect on myself and ask myself, well, is it hard work? Or do I need to be working in a much smarter way? Yeah. So that work ethic kind of value that I was brought up with doesn't necessarily work so well for me today. Yeah. And that's because and so I think as entrepreneurs, we are called upon to look at some of our values and some of our beliefs that we learned from our family, from our culture, from society, from friends, from school, and look at them and to see whether they fit who we are today. And it doesn't mean that those values were bad or that they're negative. It just means that we've outgrown them. They no longer fit us. And the stress from that comes from you. They may be the values that you've outgrown. Yeah. But the people around you may not have outgrown those values, and sure. So that's what's going to create the conflict. Mm-hmm. Is because you're operating differently, and you might live with your parents, whatever, and they're still saying, well, you're not hard work is important. Well, whereas you think, well, no, going to the gym and doing all of that stuff is more important because it sets me up to work in a more healthy way. So I guess the bottom line in terms of what I'm saying is that reflection piece as an entrepreneur is extremely important because it fuels who you are as an entrepreneur today.
Yeah, that's so true. Self-reflection and understanding yourself is paramount before we can go out there and convince other people to pay us for the products we are producing or services we are offering. Now that brings up another question. It's sort of like a chicken and egg situation where if an entrepreneur is already stressed out, I think it's exponentially harder to sort of reflect on these type of deep issues, right? So do you have any strategies that you can recommend in terms of how they can sort of quiet their mind and self-reflect?
Well, first of all, we don't have to do these things in isolation. We don't have to do these things alone. I mean, there are coaches, there are counselors out there, there are masterminds that we can get into. One of the things that I love is journaling for myself, because you become your own therapist to yourself. Just taking 5-10 minutes to sit down and to write out your thoughts and put them on paper, and then you see the irrationality of your thinking. I mean, you see, oh my God, isn't that what I said last week? Am I still looping on this thought? So just doing your own journaling and connecting with your own self, I think that's important. I think knowing how to quiet your mind and self-soothe through meditation and relaxation, and even hypnosis, and you can do that for yourself. Those are all very good techniques that I would encourage people to use. And I use energy tapping as well. It's something that I use a lot more in my practice nowadays, just to help me with my self-sabotaging kind of behaviors. So, I mean, those are the tools that I would throw out to people, and those are all accessible. Don't have to cost very much.
Those are really good.
But I mean, if you're going to be your own therapist to yourself through doing your own journaling, that doesn't cost anything except 10 minutes of your time.
And I think you brought up a very good point. You don't have to work in isolation. I think just even openly talking about your emotions and feelings with your friends and family can lead to a lot of insights.
Well, I sometimes think sometimes it's better to actually talk to a third party outside of your friends and family, because that third party is much more objective. Your friends and family can tell you what you want to hear.
Sure.
And you might be going through a separation or something, and you're talking to your friends, and they're just reflecting back to you what you're saying to them, which is not necessarily good stuff. So it might be better to speak to a third party who's
well, I guess some families are more open and honest than others, so I take that point for sure. All right. Now, do you think we're all also stressed out, and I think you brought up this point as well. Like, we are also stressed out by the sort of the pressures of having a family life and social life and balancing that with entrepreneurship. So, do you have any recommendations in terms of how much focus we should put on entrepreneurship, like not get all embroiled in running a business, and also pay attention to our family and social life? How do you recommend we should go about maintaining that?
Well, I think if you stop and think as to why are you doing this, at the end of the day, you're doing entrepreneurship or you're working in this way because you want to have a better life, which means having a better life for your family. But if you're putting all of your energies into working, if you're putting all your energies into working and not prioritizing your family, I think you're actually missing the whole point. And so I really think, you have to kind of look over your time and you really have to begin to not only prioritize family, but prioritize your relationship with your partner. And I think it really is quality versus quantity.
Yeah.
But understanding that, you may not be able to have spend a lot of time with the family, but the time that you do spend is going to be quality time. Yeah. So, maybe for you, it's 5 o'clock every day and Obama did this. Every day for an hour, he would go and have dinner with his family. Yeah. When he was in the White House. Sure. And, unless it was a major crisis, every day at 5, he had dinner with his family. So, at that point in time, phone is off. No one brings their cell phone to the table. We're engaging and we're connecting with each other. We're sitting around the table, we're eating, we're talking. How was your day? That may be all that that may be all that you can do. Yeah. But at least it is quality versus quantity. Yeah. So so I think and you need to prioritize that. So and ensure that your kids prioritize that. Now, of course, as kids get older, they have schedules and things and so forth. Then you need to maybe think, well, maybe once every 2 weeks or once a month we have a family night. Yeah. And you stick to that and you prioritize that. Or maybe once a month, the wife and I, we go out, or my, husband, we, kids with a babysitter, or the kids can stay by themselves if they're old enough. And that is our time together. And you put it on your calendar and you prioritize it. Because if we don't do these things, then we get into more trouble down the road because we've disconnected from each other. Yeah, we've disconnected from our kids. We've disconnected from our wife. We're not connecting. Yeah,
that's so true. Very well said. Now, I have I'm a big believer in positive mindset and how it actually affects the outcome of any venture that we undertake. So, we've talked about how mental health can affect our success negatively. But is the converse also true? Like when we actually become successful, have you noticed as entrepreneurs become successful at their business, does it actually improve their mental health and happiness levels and whatnot?
I think that's all depending on the individual, really, because as I said to you before, a number of major entrepreneurs ended up committing suicide. So it has to do with the individual. It has to do with how the individual values themselves, how they see themselves, how they value themselves in terms of self-worth, their self-esteem, maybe, maybe they struggle with depression, how they cope. Are they coping using alcohol? Are they coping using drugs? I think it just depends on the individual. Just because you're successful, have a successful business, doesn't necessarily mean that you are a successful person.
Yeah. So the conclusion, I guess, is that you really need to do this work and get your mental health in an optimal state, because whether you are successful or you're struggling, if your mental health is not good, you still may not attain the actual the happiness that you're looking for, right?
It's in a nutshell, it's really prioritizing that mental health. And prioritize, let's put it this way, prioritizing your well-being, optimizing your well-being. So managing your stress, taking care of, I really want to move away from work-life balance. And I look at it more as push energy and replenish energy. So, when are the times that you need to be in push energy? And there may be times, if you're launching a product or a service, you need to be in push energy. But even then, it's important to have downtime where you can bring back that replenish energy.
Cool. All right. That's great. So is there anything else that you may want to share about mental health with our audience today? That's something that I haven't asked already.
I encourage people we're living in a day where there are so many resources, and I would really encourage people to use the resources that are available. books, audiobooks, coaching, therapy, counseling, masterminds. The key is not to be in isolation, not to stay isolated and feel that you're doing it all alone. And even, networking, getting out and meeting people, but not to be isolated and to connect with other people.
Yeah. Do you have any mastermind names or any recommendation for mastermind groups for entrepreneurs?
I think you have to do your own research. It's going to depend on, who you are, where you are, what niche you're in. There are so many out there.
Sure. All right, great. Thank you so much, Veronica, for all the wisdom that you shared today. I think a lot of people in our audience got a tremendous amount of value out of this. Now, before I let you go, can you tell us a little bit about your company and how you work with entrepreneurs and anybody else who needs help with their mental health?
My company is called Empowered Solutions, and I started off doing a lot of one-to-one coaching and recognizing and managing my own stress. I began to think about ways that I could leverage my service in terms of working with more people and reaching more people with the information and resources that I have. So I'm now, I still do one-to-one coaching, and I do group coaching, and I do workshops, and presentations, but I'm now moving into the area of doing online courses. I have 2 that I've launched so far. One is Imposter Syndrome, Your Kick-Ass Guide to Recovery. It's all about those negative thoughts, those bullying thoughts that we have in our head that interferes with our entrepreneurship mindset. So that's up on Teachable. And I've just launched another course right now, Unstoppable, Finding Your Greatness Within. And that's all about some of the things that we talked about today. Finding your passion, finding your purpose, taking a look at your habits, getting out of your comfort zone, dealing with your fears, and really connecting to your values in terms of who you are, what you want, and why you want what you want, and how that impacts on you as an individual. So those are the 2 courses that I have, and I'm coming out with more. Awesome. That one's on Udemy, but you can also connect with me on my website, www.empowered-solutions.ca.
That's great. Well, thank you so much once again, Veronica. It was fun having you on this episode. And I hope you join us again on another episode in the future.
Thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
If you like this video, please go ahead and hit that like button. It will mean the world to us. And again, if you want to be notified about our new content, please consider subscribing to our channel. And now, if you are an existing or an aspiring technology entrepreneur, then I invite you to check out my new online workshop, Bootstrapping Your Tech Startup Dreams. Go to go.tetranoodle.com/boot-podcast and sign up for free. I want to make sure more successful and sound decisions are made every day in your tech projects. Let's start finding solutions to your problems. So go to go.tetranoodle.com/boot-podcast, and I look forward to helping you with your tech startup.